by this time, we can move to the next presentation, which is showing the seeds of change, assessing the determinants of agricultural technology adoption in Bangladesh, by Mr. Shakur Tajwari and Ms. Sarah.
Has ability to expand the share of GDP share of agriculture, and farmers will be able to increase their productivity, as well as they will complete their tasks with better efficiency and in shorter time. In this study, we have considered two types of technology. First of all, we have considered machines, and we have considered high yield varieties. And some of those names are written in the slides, as you can see there. So I will not spend more time on this. Research question that what factors actually drive farmers to adopt agricultural technology, and to reach our goal, we have set two different objectives. First of all, we have to identify some determinants that actually affect the technology adoption, and then we have to relate those determinants into technology adoption. So these are some previous studies that have already been conducted in this theme, and we would like to explore the same theme in Bangladesh. And we have taken more variables and found some similar significance and dissimilar significance based on the studies that I've conducted before. So we have categorized our variables into four different dimensions that are geographic, socioeconomic, infrastructure, and demographic variables. And we have taken data from a Bangladesh Integrated Household Survey, 2018 and 19. So it's a cross-sectional study. And this is a very national representative survey, which has more than 5,000 household data and more than 325 primary sampling units. And these are some our dependent variables, and we have taken first one is mod seed use. It is whether the household adopted improved seed, and second one is modern mod machine use, which is whether the household has adopted modern technology. And then we can see that some demographic and infrastructure variables and their definition, as well as the units. And here are the geographic variables and socioeconomic variables and the definitions and the units that has been used in our study. So in this study, we have used probit model. There are some reasons why we did so. First of all, our dependent variable is dichotomous. And we have there might be non-linear relationship among the explanatory variable and the dependent variable. And third of all, we wanted to observe actually the probability of technology adoption with the explanatory variables. As this is a probit model, there must be a threshold, and we have considered that the net expected utility as the threshold of this model. And we have run the separate regressions of modern seed use and modern machine use with the same variables mentioned earlier. So this is the result, and I have just included the significant variable due to time constraints. So I will just explain those. However, I will just explain the education being the insignificant variable and the reasons behind it. In our regression result, we have got education insignificant. Why? Because there might be lack of variability in the areas of education of farmers in Bangladesh. And also, farmers actually prioritize learning from their own experience or from the other local farmers other than formal education when it comes to adopting technology. And next, first variable is total land owned by households. And it is significant to modern machine use. Why so? Because those households that have more amount of land resources and a vast amount, it is likely that they might have a better access to information. They have the financial base to adopt technology. This is why it has come to significant to modern machines. And the next is electricity, which is very important in our study. And we see that electricity is very indispensable for adopting technology, because it is important to pre-harvest irrigation and post-harvest handling and other actually processing activities. Also, electricity enhances the communication channels. For example, the internet, radio, or televisions and other mediums to contact the agricultural extension officers to farmers. And next is agricultural extension contact, whether household has contacted agricultural extension officers or vice versa. And we have found that we have 100% success in the modern machine use and significant relationship in the modern seed use. Farmers actually seek advice from the extension officers. In response, those officers provide the technical guidance and other issues, and farmers can get the cost-benefit analysis and other things from these officers. So lastly, they can improve their crop cultivation practices, and actually they can increase the yield of crops. And I will explain the harvest and earnings. We have taken a natural logarithm of them, and we have found the significance. We have found almost the significant relationships, the similar of these two variables. As the amount of harvest increases, it is likely that their income and earning will increase, and we can expect that as he has more income and earning, he will adopt technology. He'll prone to adopt technology more. And as about of expenditure, it is only significant to modern seed use. We can say that if the expenditure of household increases by some amount, it eventually decreases the probability of adoption of improved seeds. And there is a interesting relationship in the land value that owns by the households. And actually, higher land values imply that the households might use those land for other non-agricultural purposes. For example, commercial, residential, and other market purposes. And in such cases, households may prioritize allocating resources toward maintaining the land's current use over technology adoption. So there is a negative relation. The coefficient is negative. And then it comes to the distance variables. Distance variables is very interesting because distance to seed dealers and pesticide dealers have the almost the quite similar relationships with the modern machine use and seed use. We have got insignificant relationships with the modern seed use and distance to seed dealers. It might be the fact that the seed importers often establish distribution networks and distribution networks, so it ensures that farmers are able to get the high varieties from them. And same thing for the goes for the town, as town are very available markets and other services. Farmers can get to adopt technology even more. And due to time shortage, I will move to the discussion part. So we actually suggest that Bangladesh government actually provide the uninterrupted and inclusive electricity connection to all regions, so that it can have a positive impact on the adoption of agricultural technology, and we can get an increase in the yield of crops. Also, the Department of Agricultural Extension needs to be allocated with more budget so that they can hire more officers, and actually it can have a beneficial impact on farmers as well as in the increase in the crop yield. And lastly, and I will like to express that supply chain management should be flexible and very flexible toward farmers, so that middleman dependency can be reduced and farmers can save their time, and farmers should be given the access to marketplace directly. So this was it. Thank you for giving me the opportunity to present here. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Shakur Tazwar. Any clarifying question? No? Otherwise, you can note down the questions. We'll get back to him later on. So we'll try again to connect Ms. Paranaj.
Yeah, I'm here. And please stop
Okay,
the share.
I think
Please stop the share from the other participant. I'll share my screen.
The sound will go to this
device. You can stop this screen share. Okay, I think Farhanaz is with us now. So I welcome Ms. Farhanaz to present their paper, Impact of Irrigation on Path of Rural Transformation in Pakistan.
Okay. So I hope my screen is visible. I've shared it.
Yes, Farah, go ahead. It's okay. We can see it.
Okay, thank you so much for providing me an opportunity to provide, to present at this, very honorable forum. So I'm going to present that how the irrigation is linked to the rural transformation in case of the Pakistan. So in short, rural transformation is actually the comprehensive process of change and development that could happen in the rural areas. So that could be an economic change, that could be a social change, or any sort of the change, which we will be captured, and I'll be explaining that in the coming slide through the different indicators. So since rural agriculture is the dominant thing in the rural, so we will see that most of the transformation related things will be moved around the agriculture sector. But before that, it's important to see the situation of the water in case of the Pakistan. So in Pakistan, water is available, naturally available in the Indus Basin, about 220 billion cubic meter of the water is there. Out of these 220 billion cubic meter of the water, 80 BCM is consumed for the irrigation purposes in agriculture, but there are also 40 BCM losses in the irrigation sector, irrigation agriculture. Then the 70 BCM is the natural losses in our lower basin, and the rest of the 30 goes to the sea, which is again not used properly. Along with the natural water, we are also having the ground pump water through 1.2 million tube wells, which give us around the water availability of 50 million acre feet. Whatever water we have in case of the Pakistan, about around 80% of that agriculture water is consumed for our four major crops that comprises the wheat, rice, sugarcane, and cotton. But once we look at their share in the GDP, so their share in the GDP is only 5%. So that shows that the productivity of water is quite low. Overall, when the water productivity is ranked, so Pakistan is 8th lowest in the world. In terms of the dollars, it's US dollar 1.38 per cubic meter. That's called as water productivity. And when the productivity is measured for the only agriculture water productivity, that is even lower. And Pakistan is in the lowest decile for the water productivity, with only US dollar 0.37 per cubic meter considered as the agriculture water productivity for the case of Pakistan. Again, the productivity of water in terms of the yield is also very low than potential, around 1.5 to 4.2 times. It's below the field potential, and considering the international practices, again, the yields are quite low. So there is a need to see what might be the reasons that why we are having water, but the productivity of the water is quite low in terms of the dollar, in terms of the yields. One of the significant reasons is the water pricing. Here you can see the term Abiana. This is actually the water pricing in the Pakistan, which is very low. That it's around $1 or less than $1 per acre, which the farmers has to pay to use the water, which is quite low. So when it is priced low, so it's not used that efficiently, which actually it should be. Along with that, we are having the water management challenges as well. The limited capacity, storage capacity is quite limited. Groundwater issues are there. The groundwater is depleting day by day, and it's also contaminated due to industrial waste or etc. Along with that, when it's about the distribution is not equitable, also not that efficient. The tariffs and the recovery rates are very low, so it's not even giving us equal funds, so we can have the O&M operation, operation management expenses could also not be covered because of the low pricing and tariffs. Infrastructure maintenance issues are there, and we are heavily dependent upon one of the single source, which is I have already mentioned in the first slides, the Indus River basin. Along with that, the government policy related inefficiencies are also there. since independence, we are facing a problem that although we have different departments, irrigation departments, to handle the water related matters, but as far as the policy is concerned, so we struggle a lot for so many years, but end up having the policy only in 2018 for the water management. This first ever national water policy for the case of Pakistan, it has the salient features about how we can reduce the river water flows and how we can efficiently use the water by using the drip irrigation and micro irrigation techniques so that the water would less be wasted in the irrigation. Also, this national water policy is focusing its attention towards the water storage things, construction of the dams, and about the improvement and of the infrastructure and replacement of the obsolete infrastructure with the new technology based infrastructure. So up till now, I have given you an idea about the water availability for the case of the Pakistan. But it's not only the water availability that matters. Rather, it also matters that what actually this water and irrigation facility leads to. So here, because I'm going to build the connection with the rural transformation, so we will see that how this irrigation and irrigation related facility help us in the phase of rural transformation. Either it is supporting it or not. For that purpose, the specific objective of the study are to quantify the impact of the irrigation on the rural transformation. So as I already mentioned, the rural transformation itself could be measured by various indicators. So in two objectives, we are taking two different indicators on which we will be seeing the impact. One is the share of the high valued agriculture, and in the coming slide I'll tell you how we have measured it, and other will see the linkage of this with the irrigation with the off-farm employment. These two, off-farm employment and share of high valued agriculture, are the indicators of rural transformation, which we will call as RT1 and RT2 in our rest of the analysis. High valued agriculture, we mean the value that is being produced by the cotton, fruits and vegetables, etc. And rest of the other the low value crops and the pulses and the grains, they are considered in the low valued agriculture. So we will see that how much is the share of the high valued in total. So theoretically, as the share of the high valued will increase, that is an indication the rural transformation is happening and the people are moving from the low value crops towards the high value crop. So that will be regarded as the high value for RT1. RT2 is the share of non-farm employment, that we cannot overlook the off-farm sector. In the farm sector, it's the transformation from low to high value crop, and in the off-farm sector, it would be that if people have enough to move or invest themselves or engage themselves into the off-farm activities as well, other than agriculture. So since both are the part of the rural sector, the farm and the off-farm, so this is overall regarded as the rural transformation with both the indicators. One is farm and other is the indicator, which we can also regard as structural transformation from farm to off-farm employment. So these two would be the indicators. So our other prominent variable, which is definitely irrigation. So in our study, we measure that by the share of irrigated farmland, which equals irrigated area divided by the total area sown, and this is how we take this variable. Since this is the regional level analysis, so district would be the regions that we are considered here. Out of 121 districts that we have so far, we'll be considering 78 districts according to the 2004 account. Now those 78 districts represent 90 districts, because our the time period that we are taking in our study is from 2004 to 2019. So the purpose of the homogeneity of the analysis, we took those districts which are there in 2004 and also they are there in the 2019. So that count is 78. The rest of the districts are not considered. Some are purely urban, or some don't have the agriculture, or there is some data limitations as well. So our analysis will move around 78 districts. These slides provide you the overall figure at the provincial and the national level regarding the RT1 and RT2. Probably RT1 and RT2 are now familiar to the people that these are the indicators of rural transformation. So that shows an increase over time. So now necessarily what could be the reason of these increase? So that that could be various factors or the drivers of this rural transformation. So this particular paper is focusing much on one of those drivers that are the reason for this rural transformation. So that driver is irrigation, which we are considering in our paper. There are many other drivers, the credit, education, and so on and so on and so forth. Now, because since in other drivers, we are mainly focusing on irrigation for this paper. So we firstly develop a link to see the correlation that exists between the irrigation and the RT1. So RT1, which is the share of high valued agriculture, it could also count for livestock, but here we separate the livestock out of it because for the case of Pakistan, the share of livestock is much significant, so that we will not be able to only look at crops in that way. So that is this segregated. And that when we look at the connections and correlations, so we have seen that over time with the irrigation improvement, RT1 crop, which is the share of high value agriculture, it increases. So it signifies rural transformation. But for the irrigation, if you could see at the other figure, it show a negative trend or the negative correlation, which means that irrigation has less to do with the livestock, it's more to do with the crop. So in the next modeling, we will be considering the RT1 crop, and we will not be much focusing on the livestock side. These are the stages of the rural transformation figure. In our paper, we'll be categorizing the stages of rural transformation into three: stage 1, stage 2, and stage 3. So definitely the stage 3 will be the advanced one, where more at the higher level of rural transformation could be seen. For the case of Pakistan, we have seen that much of the districts, they're clustered in the first and the second stage, and very few number could be seen in the third stage. Theoretically, irrigation is linked to the rural transformation through when there is irrigation facility, it's more easier to go for the high valued crops. Water productivity is going to be enhanced. Management practices they get improved. So when there are improvement in the farm sector due to all these things, so the labor is spared from the farm sector, which they themselves could engage themselves into the off farm in one way. Secondly, when the profits from the farm sector are going to increase, so the funds that could be released to get themselves invested in the off-farm sector, again, off-farm opportunities will also going to increase. So these are the channels which work simultaneously: development of the farm sector, development of the off-farm sector, and together is the rural transformation that could happen because of the irrigation drive. Quickly moving towards the model that we have employed in our study. There are 8 models basically, but I have written them in the generic form as equation 1 and 2. So accordingly, we will change that by RT in one model it will represent RT1, in other model it will represent RT2. Similarly, the difference between these two equations is that in one equation we do not consider the stages, rather we see the impact of irrigation on our dependent variable, which rural transformation, along with other CV or the other covariates. Some lag variables are also being used in our study, which includes the off-farm wages and the relative prices as well. In the other model, we also consider the stages of the rural transformation. By stages, because I have already explained the 3 stages, one will be considered at the base, stage 2 and stage 3 will be the part of the model, and we'll compare the results accordingly. Like if for the stage 2 we are having the positive value, so that means that the impact is very much pronounced in stage 2, and in other way around, if the stage 3 has even higher coefficient than stage 2, so that shows that stage 3 could be even pronounced in having these relationships. So I got a message of being quick, so I'm going to move towards the result slide. So these are the model where my dependent variable is RT1, which is the share of the high valued agriculture. So if I firstly look at the model number 1 and model number 3, in these two models we do not regard the stages into it. So when stages are not considered, we don't see the significant relationship of irrigation on the share of high valued crops, because here all the districts are there, and since from the figure we came to know that there are very less districts there are a lot of districts that are in stage 1, and stage 1 is the base category. But once we consider those districts which are in the stage 2 and 3, so you can look at these under the column 2, you can see these coefficients are very significant and in stage 3, the coefficient is even bigger than stage 2, which means that as we are moving towards the higher stages of rural transformation, the impact of irrigation become more pronounced for the rural transformation. Similarly, we have also desegregated the overall irrigation facility into the irrigation through canal, irrigation through tube well, and irrigation through canal and tube well both. Again, the relationship is much pronounced when we look at the stages into the consideration. So we can say that at the higher stages of the rural transformation, the impact of the any irrigation facility by anyhow is more pronounced. So irrigation really matters for the rural transformation. Once we look at the okay, one thing I forget in the previous slide, that also this is something very important to look at the coefficient of education. Here, education we have taken as the number of the year of the schooling. So if we see a negative sign in all the models, which shows that when the farmers get educated, so they think and they consider themselves to be more suited for the off-farm employment. And when we move to the next model, we have seen that education being positive, which shows that educated farmers, they want themselves or they consider themselves to be more appropriate for the off-farm activities, so they try to engage them there. And in these models, again, when we consider the stages, we have seen a very significant relationship that when the irrigation facilities get improved, farmers are having the enough resources, enough opportunities, so to also took the off-farm sector along with them. So they also have a shift from farm to off-farm employment in order to have the more benefits from the rural transformation. So if all the reasons could be, get summed up in the slide, so this is it. That overall investigation reveals that irrigation is contributing positively to the process of rural transformation, and at the higher stages, but it's pronounced at the higher stage. Here to be very important driver to increase the off-farm employment and has a negative impact when we see it with the RT1, implying that the educated labor is not considering agriculture as an attractive venue for the case of Pakistan, rather for the future growth, they want to get themselves engaged in off-farm sector. So hence it demands policy measures so that the things could get settled in the farm sector as well in off-farm sector. In off-farm sector, the policy could be to develop more employment opportunities so that the structural shift could be beneficial for the overall betterment of the economy. So this is all from my side. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much.
I can't hear. I guess it's muted from your side.
Okay. Can you hear me, Farah?
Yes, now I can hear you.
Okay, thank you. So thank you very much for presenting the paper, and please be with us. We'll get back to you soon again. So in the sessions we have heard 4 interesting papers, and interestingly, though there are only 4 papers, but we have covered very transbounders, like we got papers from Bangladesh, Pakistan, and Nepal. So this is an achievement of this session, I think, that we can talk about overall agriculture and food security in South Asia. So now I would like to move to our distinguished discussant, Professor Dr. Nahid Sattar, to discuss about these papers, overall what he thinks, and later on we'll get back to you for more discussions. So I welcome Dr. Nahid Sattar.
Thank you very much. Chair of the session, for inviting me. I first of all start with thanking Simon for the seminar, which they have given for this seminar. So this is very a good platform for young economics to come and present their findings. I think there is also presence of many prominent economists of the country. So and also, it is good to have a session on with us in this program to discuss various issues in agriculture and food security. And I think today's session was very rich in terms of, I think our Honorable Chair has already said, both in terms of the geographic distribution, like we have, this is a truly international atmosphere with people from 3 different countries presenting, and also in terms of the content, in terms of we within agriculture and food security, we are talking about from calorie distribution to aquaculture to technology adoption or mechanization, and also like irrigation. So there are a lot of issues being discussed. So my role here is to basically discuss the papers that have been presented, and I first like to thank all the presenters that have come up with these studies and presented the findings or the takeaways from the studies in a very nice way. I think they have all been very good and all have contributed to the academic discourse. However, like my role here as a discussant, I'll have to go through different papers and make different comments. I think many of you are familiar with in academia about the term of reviewer 2. So like, you know that when we are attempting to publish something in a journal, it goes through a review by at least 2 persons, and reviewer 2 is this mythical figure who is the most critical about everything and like who likes to push the authors, challenge the authors. I don't want to be reviewer 2, but my intention is for the researchers so that they can make their analysis more robust. That would, when they eventually present this or like go for a publication, they would be able to face reviewer 2. I think if I first focus on the first paper that was presented, which was titled Calorie Distribution in Nepalese Household, a multi-cross-sectional study. It was by Mr. Bipin Khatka. And here basically the study is trying to show the relationship between calorie and income. So it was done through 3 rounds of Nepalese Living Standard Survey, NLSS. But the study is basically a cross-sectional study. So my first, I think this is basically, I may ask a few questions, and when we can maybe go back to the authors and they can respond to that. That my first question to the authors would be like, is this a panel data? I mean, I'm not actually familiar with the Nepalese Living Standard Survey. But so if it is, can you just, in case of this question, can you clarify whether this is the panel data or this is like, are the households across the 3 rounds, are they same households or the different households? Different houses. Okay, that's why you could not go for a panel regression or something like that, because that separates the household. Okay, so that is a challenge that comes here. So we cannot compare one set of household with another set of household. Okay, but then it's still fine. Like we can of course compare data from one time period to another, because all of them are sort of nationally representative surveys from different time periods. So I think everything that these papers find is good, is like it is what we would expect. But that is my sort of like my, I would say, a limitation of this paper. It is really expected that if income is increasing, that the calorie intake will increase. So that the issue here is with if we are thinking about the novelty of the finding or how this pushes the boundary of academic knowledge. So there is an issue there, because this has been studied for decades, the relationship between income and calorie, and it is almost something that everyone would come to agree. So that is I think that is one issue. But I think the one way of looking at it or overcoming this would be if we could focus on more of it from a nutritional perspective, from dietary diversity perspective, or something like that. For example, in the result, what we have seen that there are, I think, data on different food groups. Okay, so for example, there is carbohydrate, there is fat, there is the oils, there is protein. For different, there is a diversity there. So you have tried to address this diversity, but again, in terms of their contribution to calorie. And I think a more like a recent approach would be if we could say calculate household dietary diversity of sort, and then compare that across time, that how that changes. I think it will give you the same results, because like it is expected that the intake of carbohydrates is expected to decline, and then intake of different protein food based products or fat would increase. So probably you would get a higher dietary diversity over time. So I think that is something that could be considered. There is in one of your slides, it was mentioned that the equivalence, there were some graphs between equivalence scale and household size, and there was a linear relationship between that. If you could just explain when we come back to you that why that happened, I think that would interesting. So I think that's all I had on this first. The next paper was presented by Mr. Abu Ahmed Sabit, who his paper was his study was titled "Factors Affecting the Expansion of Freshwater Aquaculture Area by Fish Farmers in Bangladesh." Now I have to note something here. Like I'm also a part of this study, so I'm actually I'm aware of what he's doing, and I have been like a part of designing this study, but I haven't given Sabir any feedback of recently, so that he makes this presentation by himself, and then we can see that where we can go from there. I think, of course, I definitely think this is an interesting study, because like I think aquaculture it has been expanding in Bangladesh. But I think when you are justifying the study, it is important to bring in the land use conflict issue here, because when we want a higher production from aquaculture, we want more fish, but the issue of expansion becomes more important when we understand it in the context of land use between aquaculture and fish and other high value crops. So that is, I think, one way of justifying the study better. And you have a survey of 247 households, which is good. One thing I think of after today's presentation is what you're trying to do is more of a willingness to expand, right? So I think rather than saying it factors affecting expansion, in some ways, if we can think of it as a willingness to expand, I think that would be more appropriate in what you are doing. And just a structural issue, or the way you presented your results, it is like the way the variables were presented, maybe just the naming, the way they were named, it was just like maybe using one word, which makes it difficult for the reader to focus on what exactly these variables are. So like when you are presenting the model, or when you are presenting the results, it is good if we could probably write a few words to name the variable. For example, if you mean high input cost, better write high input cost rather than writing input. It becomes more easier to follow. And again, talking about the high input cost, I would like to hear from you when we get back to you that this study did not find any relation between high input cost and the expansion decision, their willingness to expand. So why do you think that was? Like I know that you have been part of the survey, you have visited, you have interviewed the farmers, you have talked to them extensively. So what is your take on the coefficient, or the significance of the coefficient we find from there? The next paper that was scheduled for the third presentation, which was eventually presented nicely after the technical difficulties we have. It was the impact of irrigation on path of rural transformation in Pakistan by Ms. Faranaz, which is like this paper basically is trying to link irrigation and rural transformation in Pakistan. And by here, the word rural transformation, I think they are trying to look at basically two indicators. One is the share of high value crops and the share of farm employment. and they have been using the panel data with Pakistan Social and Living Measurement Survey. So I think it was good that to have a panel data and use on that. So my first question or issue here, it will be with the concept of the term of the stages of rural transformation. This study mentions rural transformation, the stages of rural transformation several times, but I don't think there is a universal understanding of what these stages are. So if the authors focus on clarifying that is precisely what are the boundaries of these stages. When does stage 1 become stage 2? How do you define these stages, and what are the linkages between these stages? I think that becomes more interesting, and that also relates to, like, I think in the paper says that the irrigation matters for rural transformation for higher stages of the rural transformation. But like it could be when we're talking about high value crops, the high value crops can also be cultivated in certain area because of some geographic characteristics. So what is actually why irrigation is connected with that? That is something that needs to be understood. And also, since this study is about a path, in the title it talks about a path towards rural transformation. I think whatever it does empirically, whatever it does with regression, there can be a more richer discussion if there is some qualitative insight there, that how this transformation is happening, how this path, how the farmers are moving, or the respondents or the households are moving from one stage to another. So I think if a richer qualitative discussion is there, that would improve the findings. I think so again, it was also an interesting study. The fourth paper, which was presented in number 3, but it was titled "The Sowing the Seeds of Change: Assessing the Determinants of Agricultural Technology Adoption in Bangladesh" by Mr. Shakir Tazwar. This is again a very important paper. Like, it is looking at the factors that are driving the technology adoption in Bangladesh, and here they have specifically, they're talking about two types of technology. The one is modern seeds and the other is modern machinery. They have used the BIHS survey, the third round survey, I think 2018-19. So here, the first comment I would make about, again, the data. Here, panel is available. I know that again in BIHS we have 3 rounds and survey. So why couldn't you like use the panel? Maybe in future, if you could use the panel for the same analysis you're doing, I think that would be more useful. The other thing I have here is, like, in case of, for example, modern machinery, you have listed several machineries and you have lumped them all together, right? So who do you call here an adapter? Who is adopted one machinery, right? Any one machinery, if someone has adopted. If your data permits, I would suggest you to look at different machineries separately. Why I'm saying that? Because different machineries might have different factors that are like influencing their adoption. For example, if it's a seeder, it can have a different factor that is influencing adoption compared to a harvester. So that's why if you look at, if your data allows, if I don't know if BIHS data allows to do that, but that is something that you could do. Also, in the same thing I can say for seed. And then this study doesn't have to be one paper. If you are able to do that, you can bring out multiple papers out of this, where you could look at different technology adoption of different technologies. One other query I have is, when you're talking about use of machinery, is it ownership of machinery or the use of machinery? Use of machinery. So it doesn't necessarily relate with the ownership. Okay, so that it makes the findings of what you said about I think there was a significant relationship with land size. So right. So but then the small farmers would also be able to access this machinery. So why we would see more large farmers? It is not it is. I'm not saying that it's not possible, but maybe we can talk about that better. And so yeah, so I think that's okay. So I think there were a few other minor issues with the with the interpretation of the regression coefficient. That is fine. Oh, just one point I think I could last point I could make here is that you also have found a significant relationship with electricity of both of the machinery, right, of the machine. Both. Yeah. But you know, in case of machinery, both of these, almost all of these machinery are basically diesel operated. So it is actually, I think the electricity is more a proxy of the infrastructure of the area rather than electricity per se. So I think you could explore that factor more in depth. So I think that's all I had from my side from now. I think I'll go back to the honorable chairperson and we could come back for more discussion. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Professor Nahid, for giving some insightful observation and putting some good suggestions to the authors. So I would like to open the floor for the audience. If you have any questions to the authors of the papers, and we don't have much time in hand, so please be short and specific in your question so that we can finish the session on time. You can raise your hand if you have any question. Or any clarifying question, or any other, just how much you like these papers, anything you can just express. Whether this session is interesting to you. No question? I'm expecting at least a few.
Or if there is any question online.
Okay. We have participants online as well. Our online participants, if you have any questions, you can raise your hand also.
I think there's one raised hand.
Okay. I see one raised hand from Abdullah Anju. I'm requesting him to place his question.
Okay, my question is basically it's about the third presentation, where I mean author is trying to explore and the impact of different variables on the adoption of technology. So there he included basically two variables. One is total land and other is land value. I think they will correlate with each other. That really need to think that how to resolve that issue, because otherwise the coefficient will not be reliable, because those variables are value and land are collinear with each other. Thank you very much.
Any more question? Okay, if there is no question from the floor, I'd like to go to our authors. If they have any specific answer to the questions raised by the discussant, as well as participant. So, very quickly, an answer.
Thank you, Hansan Madam and Asit sir. So why we have used cross-sectional data but not panel data? I have already clarified that we only have cross-sectional data. So the Nepal Living Standard Survey is done with the help of World Bank and UNDP. So the methodology is followed using the Living Standard Measurement Survey adopted by the World Bank. So it is national representative sample, and the seasonal variation are also addressed, taking data in the different time period for the whole round of year. So this one is about why we use cross-sectional data. And regarding adult male equivalent, as you notice that in OECD new and old scale, there is some kind of fixed regression, fixed equation, which makes the linear combination. Because if you add a single male, or if you use a single children, then the relation between consumption and yeah, there is a kind of linear relationship. But in the train scale, the regression starts with log total calorie consumption. So that makes some kind of so the result we got was um, not linear. So this one is another. And regarding dietary diversity, okay, sir has given insightful feedback, so we'll try to incorporate that later.
Other participants?
Thank you, ma'am. Thank you, everyone. The most important thing that I have just heard from my successor, that is land use conflict, and I will investigate in that land use in my paper, and also I will provide the problem that is any problem in my research. And sir has asked one question, that is, we don't find any high input cost. And actually, that is interesting because input is very much important in any production, but I haven't found this relationship with that decision. It mostly I can share my experience when I was in the field, that I have talked with the fish farmer. That is the most the input cost basically actually covers that feed cost. Like in aquaculture production, feed mostly the farmers use the feed. In other for other agricultural crops, there are many types of food, but here actually the feed have significant contribution to the aquaculture production. So when there are different kinds of feed, that is farm-made feed and also the company-made feed. When the farmer thinks that they have small amount of money, they generally purchase the farm-made feed, that is their own frame, that what kind of ingredient they will use in that feed. Like we all of you know that about the fish meal in the feed, and they generally use the dried fish, which is very much cheap, and also that is not hygienic. So in case of company feed, they generally import the fish meal, and for that reason their feed price is very much higher. But
Just make it short. Yeah.
but the company have a higher ACR, which actually increase the yield of their production. So that can be a factor that for that reason actually they are not bothered about the input cost. I think. So, but I will further investigate.
Thank you. Thank you. You don't have any I'd like to go to online to Ms. Farhana.
Yes.
If you have
Yes.
response.
Yes, yes, I would like to respond. First of all, thank you so much for your valuable comments and encouragement. Can you hear me? Yes.
Go ahead, Farah. Yes, it's okay.
Thank you so much for the very valuable comments. I would like to shortly respond to them. One of the question is raised by Sarah is the how we have identify or define the stages. So in our paper, the formula or the rule is defined that when the values could be regarded in stage 1 and when they could be regarded in stage 2 and 3. So the ranges are identified there. Those ranges are based upon the qualitative factors, the indigenous factors, plus they are based upon the references provided in the paper. Secondly, talked about that the districts might be different based upon the geography. So yes, I understand from their comment that he is talking about the indigenous or endowments differences across the districts. So since it was a shortage of time, so some of the factors they were there in my model, which are explaining the geographical, which are explaining the variability across districts in terms of the education, in terms of the different set of the wages, in terms of the many other factors, which due to the shortage of time I could not explain them well. But still, I consider further that if I could capture them well with some other variables as well. So thank you for that suggestion as well. And the last one was about the qualitative discussion. So thank you so much, very much for this input. Yes, I'll try to improve my paper by considering the qualitative analysis into it so that I could explain the whole scenario even in a more fruitful way. Thank you so much.
We are at the end of this session. So before concluding the session, I would like to just make few comments on the papers. So I would like to thank Sanem for inviting me in this conference, which is very multidimensional conference, I should say. And agricultural economics they have included in these sessions, and we are grateful for that. I would like to thank all the authors who have presented their papers, very interesting papers, and I enjoyed reading these papers very much. So I don't have much time to discuss, but as our discussant said, that in the past paper, Mr. Bipin Kharka, he had done some very rigorous analysis, but as we found that all the results are very expected. Like we know that there are strong biases in intra-household food allocation. Husband and sons get better food than wives and daughters. Then calorie intake from cereals over the years is decreasing as income increases, and as income increases, protein consumption will increase. It is also very expected, and also urban area is better in consumption than rural areas. And with the time frame that the calorie intake will be improved, it is this assumption is also validated. So yeah, this study is fine, but if you can put something new, innovative in your study, like if you can focus the nutritional aspects. Our discussion mentioned about HDDS. There are another new methods like dietary diversity questionnaire, DDQ. So these kind of things, if you can think of to apply, and something novel on your results, that would be very good, and it would be easier for you to publish the paper in any reputed journals. The second papers from Sabbir is an interesting one also, but I think he has to work a little bit more to get this paper published. So he mentioned that there are practice differences between two study areas. So you should elaborate the differences. So what are those differences? And your regression analysis is mostly all these variables, explanatory variables, are binary variables. So whether these making any weightful, that it is mostly very general perception based. So these results are not giving us a very strong evidence of the expansion of aquaculture farm areas. So but besides this analysis, if you can put some empirical evidences of the drivers of area expansion of aquaculture, that would be good. Otherwise, it will be difficult to prove that only for based on the only perception that these are the main drivers of the area expansion of aquaculture. Then the third paper, impact of irrigation on path of rural transformation in Pakistan. It's really a good paper based on Indus basin irrigation system of Pakistan, and the largest irrigation systems in the world, as they say. And obviously, irrigation contributes positively for rural transformation. I have one just suggestion here that you, Farah, you use the word off-farm and non-farm. So there is a difference between off-farm and versus non-farm. So off-farm is all agricultural activities that occur beyond the farm, but it is related to farm activities. But non-farm is not related to agricultural activities at all. So what did you mean in this paper? I think you mean non-farm activities. So it will be better to use non-farm throughout the paper if you mean this. And it is also interesting to see that it is also obvious that when in the intensity of rural transformation increases, then the relationship will be with the higher value crops, and the non-farm activities are more significant. Yes, this is an interesting finding, obviously. And the paper from Shakir Tazwar, technology adoption of agricultural machineries and seeds, you consider, as our discussant already mentioned, that when you put 8 machineries, but the adoption level, how did you combine all these 8 machineries into one variable? It is my question. So it will be better to run this regression not as a variable. You can try multivariate multiple regression, something so that you can put all the machineries differently, not that yes or no, not a dichotomous analysis here. So otherwise it will be very difficult to explain the eruption of all the machineries, because the adoption level might be different, and the number of machineries they adapted, it might be different also. So I would like to suggest you to think about regression analysis based on the machineries. The same is also applicable for seeds, hybrid variety seeds or modern seed varieties. And also in your analysis, you have some variables like amount of harvest. You may mention that if amount of harvest increases, the income of the people increases, and then it is related to like this. But you also put income as a variable. So there might be some multicollinearity among these variables, and also land value, as our online participants say. Land value, you mentioned in the paper that it has not any significant relationship with the adoption. So you can drop this variable from the analysis. So overall, this is a good paper. So you can also elaborate the conclusion and recommendation a little bit more so that you can get published this paper. So I'd like to thank all the authors once again for giving us a very interesting session. And I would like to thank all the audience as well for being present in this session. So with these viewers, I would like to conclude this session. Thank you very much.
Like Camera, please. Now, Mr. Apollo. Now, Mr. And Ms. Farah will be providing a certificate online. And thank you everyone. And
congratulations, Ms. Paranas. So, is she here?
Yes, ma'am, I'm here. Yes, I'm
Yes,
here.
it would be better if we could hand over the certificate you directly. But anyway, congratulations again to be with
Thank
us.
you. Thank you so much. Thank you so much, ma'am.
And we're very sorry for the
আমরা সবাই একটা গ্রুপ ছবি তুলি পার্টিসিপেন্ট ইয়ারা আসতে পারেন অর্গানাইজাররা একটু কেউ এদিকে আসে। Okay. Thank you very much.
Ready?
সামনে থেকে এখান থেকে। Thank you. Thank you. তোমাদেরকে অনেক ধন্যবাদ। ভেরি অর্গানাইজড অল দিস থিংস। আমাদেরকে তেমন কোনো তো ইয়ে নিতে হয়নি, প্রেশার নিতে হয়নি।